Hello and welcome to Mysterious Realities. We would love to hear what you think about today's case and any suggestions of cases you wish to see us cover in future episodes. We would also really appreciate it if you could like the episode, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell so you never miss a new episode. It really makes a huge difference. In the busy world which we now live in, many of us may long for the peace and solitude that a remote desolate island could provide. Stepping off the roller coaster of life, splitting your time between work and your home life, even for just a couple of days sounds very appealing. One such island that could fit this description is Flannan Isle, on the most northwesterly islands of Scotland. Its remoteness takes you back to simpler times, before television, gaming and the internet, a time when Amazon could not deliver essential items the next day, and a place where, if there was an emergency, you would be waiting a very long time for help to arrive. Given its location in the Outer Hebrides and surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean, Flannan Isle was the ideal location for a lighthouse to warn and guide ships safely as they navigated difficult waters. The construction of the lighthouse was completed in 1899. In December of 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers manned the lighthouse. These were James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur. The first signs of trouble on Flannan Isle came to light on the evening of the 15th of December 1900, as the crew of transatlantic steamer Archer, heading to the port of Leith, noticed that the light was not on as they pasted the island. 3 days later, when they reached the port of Leith, they reported the potential problem to Northern Lighthouse Board. Upon receiving this worrying news, the board immediately dispatched the lighthouse relief tender ship Hesperus to investigate. Upon its arrival on Boxing Day, Captain Jim Harvey, in an attempt to alert the lighthouse keepers, sounded the ship's horn and sent up a flare. However, when they received no response, Harvey decided to disembark and the relief lighthouse keeper, Joseph Moore, set off up the steep steps within the cliffs to the lighthouse. After climbing up some 160 steps, Moore reached the lighthouse. Upon entering the living quarters, Moore noticed a few things that did not seem right. Firstly, he noted that the clock on the wall had stopped, the kitchen table had been set for a meal which had never been eaten, and one of the chairs had been toppled over. The only sign of life in the deserted lighthouse was a canary in its cage. Moore immediately returned to the Hesperus and reported his findings to Captain Harvey. Harvey decided to send 2 sailors of his sailors to shore to assist Moore in searching for the missing keepers. The 3 men carried out a thorough search of the whole lighthouse complex. However, the only thing they discovered was a set of oilskins. The men assumed that one of the keepers had ventured outside only wearing his shirt. They set off to search the other landing platform on the west of the island. When they arrived, they observed evidence that the island had been hit by a massive storm. They noted that a supply box had been smashed and its contents scattered across the ground, even though it was over 100 feet above sea level. Iron railings to the side of the path had been bent and twisted, part of a railway track had been ripped from the concrete moorings. Furthermore, a huge rock which was estimated to weigh more than a ton had also been displaced. But there was no sign of the 3 keepers or any evidence to suggest where they may have been and what had happened to them. After receiving the report, this news to Captain Harvey concluded that the 3 men must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane, and upon returning to port he telegrammed the Northern Lighthouse Board to inform them of their discoveries. Harvey had instructed Moore and the 2 sailors to remain on the island to operate the lighthouse and continue the search for the missing keepers. On December 29, Superintendent Robert Muirhead, of the Northern Lighthouse, began a formal investigation into the disappearances. He quickly concluded that the remaining oilskin had belonged to William MacArthur. Upon examining the wreckage on the western landing, Muirhead conjectured that Marshall and Ducat probably headed out into the storm to secure some equipment stored there. Furthermore, Muirhead deemed that when his colleagues did not return, that MacArthur had ventured out to find them. In his official report, Muirhead would write that given the evidence which I was able to find, he was satisfied that the men had been on duty up till dinner time on Saturday the 15th of December, that they had gone down to secure a box, in which the mooring ropes, landing ropes etc. were kept, and which was secured in a crevice in the rock about 110 feet above sea level, and that an extra-large sea had rushed up the face of the rock, had gone above them, and coming down with immense force, had swept them completely away. However, regardless of Muirhead's findings and conclusions, the public were not satisfied that this was the end of the story. Rumor was rife that there could be a more sinister explanation for the disappearance of the three keepers. Theories ranged from the men being eaten by a giant sea serpent to being whisked away by a colossal seabird. Another theory suggested they left the island by boat to escape debts, while another more implausible had them forcefully removed by the skeletal crew of a ghost ship. Further doubt was cast on the findings of Muirhead's investigation as logbook allegedly containing several baffling entries was discovered. The logbook entries made between the 12th and 15th of December, Marshall is claimed to have written that a great storm the likes of which he had never seen before had hit the island. His entry continued by stating that Duckett was unusually quiet when the storm hit and MacArthur, known as a man's man with not much of a sensitive side, was weeping. Additional logbook entries suggested that all three men were praying in the eye of the monstrous storm, with a final entry, dated the 15th, reported that the storm had passed and all was calm. The existence of the logbook would suggest that no one had been missing, injured or dead before the 15th, as surely it would have been mentioned. However, it is likely that the logbook was a fake, as no evidence has been discovered to prove one way or another. So, ruling out the logbook and the stories of ghost ships, sea monsters or giant birds, just what really did happen to James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and William MacArthur? Well, there are three recognized theories. Firstly, it is reported that MacArthur was an ill-tempered man who was often used his fists to sort out any arguments, so did he start a fight on the western landing which, tragically led to all three men falling to their deaths from the cliffs. A second theory is one of the men murdered the other two, threw their bodies into the sea and then took their own life by jumping from the cliffs. However, there is no evidence that a fight or any kind of struggle took place, leaving us with a more plausible explanation that Marshall and Duckett were swept away whilst trying to secure supplies and equipment on the West Landing. Concerned that his colleagues had failed to return, MacArthur headed out to find them and he, too, perished in the storm. What state of mind would these men need to have been in to venture out at such a dangerous time is unknown, especially when they would have been safe in the lighthouse. However, one notable fact that may help explain this was that Marshall had previously lost equipment and supplies in a storm and had been fined 5 shillings. Given that Duckett, Marshall, and were family men, that amount of money was serious and would have had a huge impact on them being able to provide for their families. Whatever the real reason for the disappearance of James Duckett, Thomas Marshall and William MacArthur are, it is likely we will never know for sure, but whatever fate met the lighthouse keepers, the Flannan Isles incident remains a mystery. Thank you for listening. What do you think happened to the 3 lighthouse keepers? Have you never been to Flannan Isle and what did you think of it? Let us know in the comments.